Andy Shea and Yale looking for the first championship.
And this group looks to cement themselves as the best team in school history.
Great feed by Reeves, the vision. Alessi all the way. Bouncer! Jason Alessi!
I mean, are we having fun yet?
Matt Gaudette.
Gaudette's money in the bank.
Yale's gonna win it!
Just getting here was so surreal. It just happened so fast. There's no chance, dude! Sorry. They're the greatest group of young men that you could possibly imagine.
Yale broke through in 2018. Who will hoist the trophy in 2019? There's a live look at the Penn State lacrosse team coming into this NCAA tournament ranked #1 in the country.
We are.
Penn State playing for that trophy right there. Yale, the Elis, were able to, as I mentioned, break through and win their first national title in the modern era. Last year, Penn State, one of 17 teams, a part of the NCAA tournament this year, hoping to win it all at the end. Hi, everybody. Chris Cotter, Paul Carcaterra, Quinn Kesnick. Our NCAA lacrosse selection special gets started right now for the next hour. We'll not only reveal the 17-team bracket, we'll talk to coaches, players, the selection committee chairman, so we're going to have a lot of fun. When you think about the lacrosse you've seen now, not just this year, but specifically during these last couple of weeks during conference tournament play, what do you expect to see now with this tournament going?
Look, I think big picture, times are changing. A lot of people assume Penn State will get the #1 seed. Rightfully so if they do. This is a high-octane offense. But they've never won a playoff game in school history. So that scene in Happy Valley is really cool. You saw the cap and gowns. I even saw Chris Sabia with a cap and gown. I think he had flip-flops on, too.
Look, we've never had a season like this season with the shot clock. This weekend has been amazing. High-scoring games, one-goal games. No reason to think that won't continue and be our best tournament ever.
It's time to introduce you to how this whole thing works. As we mentioned, the selection committee earlier today filled out their 17-team bracket we're about to show you. 9 automatic bids of conference tournament champions. The ACC champ doesn't get an automatic bid because they don't have enough teams in the conference. So they're part of this pool of 8 at-large bids. You got a game on Wednesday between 2 of the lowest-ranked teams that got the automatic bids. They will play the #1 seed. First-round games at campus sites. Quarterfinals in East Hartford and Hempstead. Championship weekend in Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia. Let's show you the top 8 seeds first, and let's start with #1. And we just saw them, Penn State, Cart.
Oh, they're unbelievable. I mean, when you think about the pieces to the puzzle, they have the best scorer in school history in Mac O'Keefe, the lefty, the best passer in school history, who's on target to break the single-season record in the NCAA for passes. But it doesn't stop there. You have the long pole Chris Sabia, who's a shutdown guy, Big Ten Defender of the Year. And then Jack Kelly and Nick Spillane at the midfield. So there's so many stars. I know Ament and I know O'Keefe get the headlines, but this team is ridiculous from end to end.
Penn State, as you see, the Nittany Lions enjoying it now. They've enjoyed it all season long, and they're the 1 seed. 2 seed Q is Duke.
Well, Duke enters this tournament off a loss in the ACC. When I look at this team, I think midfield scoring and Brad Smith and that man right there, Nakai Montgomery. And then I think a great defensive duo down below with Cade Van Raphorst and JT Giles Harris. If they can get complementary scoring from the attack, some behind-the-goal presence, there's no reason to think that Duke can't make a run for the championship. They have been the team of the decade. Can they finish it off?
Clark, Virginia, they're back. #3 seed.
They're back. They had the offense the last few years, but now defensively they're bringing it as well. Michael Krause has been a little nicked up with an ankle injury, but guys like Conrad and Matt Moore at attack this year, after playing midfield his whole life, has been an exceptional compliment to a guy like Michael Krause. And then don't forget about Dox Aiken. You have one of the best midfielders in school history. So it's the balance now that Lars Tiffany has that they haven't had in the past.
Q, we just saw Penn wrap up the Ivy.
If you haven't seen the Quakers play this season, you got to trust me on this one. This is a title contending team. Balanced approach with Simon Matthias and the freshman Sam Handley, the talented Big Mitty. You got Adam Goldner, almost 50 goals on the season. Great face-off game, the transfer. Gallagher, Reed Junkins played more games than us combined between the pipes. This is a really, really good team.
So is Yale, the defending champs. They're #5.
They're going to be angry coming into the playoffs. Last year, they lost the Ivy Championship to Cornell. They played with a chip on their shoulder. Questions for me. Can Jackson Morrill and Matt Brandow really take the lead of this offense where they're dodging consistently? If so, you'll get the step-down shooters from the midfield, and they will be lethal. I think Jack Starr has proven in bigger games now, he plays his best ball.
Q, Towson, 6th seed.
Great start to the season, a little soft in the middle, but then they finished with their AQ in their league. Brendan Sunday has been lighting it up all year. Now, how do they survive as their Fogo, Alex Woodall, has been hurt? I like Tyler Canto between the pipes. This is a team that has a strong sense of identity with Coach Sean Nadalin. They made a trip to the 2017 championship weekend.
Clark, Notre Dame seeded number 7. Might be a surprise to some.
What Notre Dame team will we see? Will we see the team that played incredible in the semifinals of the ACC against Duke, where Costabile had 5 goals? Or is it the offense that had only 4 goals against Virginia yesterday? Look, they have the big names with Costabile and Gleason, but what I like about this offense when they're at their best, they bring 4 to 5 playmaking Dodgers to the offense.
Final team seeded in this tournament, Q, it's Loyola.
And a home game for the Greyhounds. They have the best fans in Division I lacrosse. They get to see Pat Spencer. Let me tell you, this could be Spencer's final. It will be his final home game, and they will support him. He has been a generational talent, surrounded by Chase Scanlon, Aiden Olmstead, Kevin Lindley. They can score. The question marks for Loyola's defense. Jake Stover stood on his head this year, but too often they have given up a lot of quality shots.
So we know who the 8th-seeded teams are and the teams that will host in the first round of this NCAA lacrosse tournament. Who will their opponents be? Let's show you how the bracket fills out. Penn State, the number 1 seed, will play the winner of Marist and UMBC. They'll play on Wednesday, so this game in Happy Valley will be Sunday at noon on ESPNU. Loyola, Q just talked about the Greyhounds. Saturday on the U, they'll play Syracuse going on the road.
This is a monster matchup. Syracuse has only been on the road once since 2007, a year they didn't make the playoffs. That was 2012 against Duke. Every single Sunday night in the first round, we're accustomed to Syracuse playing in the Dome. They go on the road against Loyola, and I am looking forward to the matchup of Pat Spencer and Nick Mellon, who has elite feet as a defender. That's going to be a great one-on-one matchup.
Yeah, this has got to be one of the top games of the first round. And, I think about Brett Kennedy, and Cuse has had the extra week off. Both teams coming in off of losses.
Yeah.
How do they react? Loyola's a tough place to play. Last year they beat Virginia in the first round, but, this is a toss-up. A great, great game.
Let's see who these 2 Ivy League schools who are seeded will play. Yale as the 5 seed. Home game against the Big East champs, Georgetown. That game Saturday at 2:30 on ESPNU. And then Penn will take on Army West Point, the Patriot League champions, Saturday at 5 o'clock on the U.
You look up at Yale, defending national champs. Georgetown, that is not an easy game. Offensively, they have pieces. I mentioned Mac O'Keefe and Grant Ament as a 1-2 punch. Well, how about Jake Caraway and Daniel Bicaro at attack? That is a tough duo to defend, because you have the shooter in Caraway, and Bicaro can make things happen with his feet and his passing ability. And then you have Lucas Wittenberg, who had 8 assists from the midfield in the semifinal game against Providence in the Big East. So they have some dudes who can score.
Swamp Dogs, look out for the Hoyas. And meanwhile, Army, Johnny Surdick defensively, A.J. Barreto between the pipes. The question marks for Army, to me, are facing off, because Penn is very good in that department.
Yes.
Army hasn't been. Otherwise, the cadets will show up and give Penn everything they can handle.
Let's find out who the ACC champs are going to play in Charlottesville. Saturday, the nightcap, 7:30 on ESPNU. Robert Morris, who gave Maryland all they could handle last year on the road, back at it again as winners in the NEC, taking on Virginia again that Saturday night. Sunday afternoon, Towson, the 6th seed, did everything they needed to do in the Colonial Tournament. Wow. Look at that. Maryland on the road taking on Towson, Q.
So the Terps get into the NCAA tournament, and they got to go to Towson. That's a rivalry from yesteryear. These teams used to play each other every year until Maryland dropped Towson, and there's going to be some intensity in the house there. The Terps smarting after back-to-back losses to Johns Hopkins.
Look, Towson will come out swinging. My question is the health of Alex Woodall. It's been reported that he might have broken his jaw. I mean, what is the status of this guy? Because when he is healthy, it changes everything for Towson in terms of the possession game and he was in great shape this year. I mean, he's a pro face-off guy, a full-grown man who can tilt the field.
Yeah.
We want to see the last 4 teams to get into this tournament. We know that Notre Dame and Duke are in because they are seeded. Who will the Irish play in Arlada? They'll play Hopkins Sunday at 7:30. That's the last game of the weekend on ESPNU. And one of the better weekends or one of the better games rather in this first round. Duke, meanwhile, the final team is Richmond out of the SoCon. Did a great job to go through that tournament and defeat High Point for the championship. So Duke and Richmond, 5 o'clock Sunday on ESPNU, rounds out the bracket. As we're seeing now, these 17 teams getting put in place. What first jumps out at you, Q?
No Cornell. They're the team that you don't see on the bracket. They're a 10-win team. They beat Towson. They beat Notre Dame. We'll talk to the head of the selection committee later in the show. But I can't remember a year where there's a team like Cornell that didn't make the field. Okay, you're 10-5, a quarterfinalist a year ago with an offense that's absolutely electric. Played a good schedule. They have no bad losses.
They do. And when I look at Maryland and Cornell head-to-head, Maryland's RPI is an 11, Cornell's is a 12, so that essentially is a wash, right?
Right.
Strength of schedule, Cornell was an 11, Maryland was a 21. Wins against top 10 RPI teams, Cornell had 2.
Yeah.
Notre Dame and Towson. Maryland only had 1.
Maryland had the 5 top 20 wins. Cornell only had 2. So it depends on how you slice it. And to Q's point, we'll talk to the committee chair about that. What was more important to them at the end?
Yeah, and you think about just this season, a team like High Point not making the NCAA tournament. They beat the number 2 seed Duke. They beat the number 3 seed Virginia. So that's what college lacrosse has become. This tournament is as equal with capable teams who can make a run to the championship.
And I think Maryland was probably assisted to some extent with Penn winning the Ivy.
Right.
I mean, I know the eye test doesn't come into account here and it's numbers based, but you beat a team that won the Ivy that's trajectory is up here too. I mean, you look at Penn, they reeled off 10 straight this year.
Yeah, and again, we'll have a conversation. Johns Hopkins borderline also, by the way.
But
8-7. Other than those 2 Maryland wins, they're 0-6 against the field.
Yeah, but the number 1 strength of schedule in
and
all of college lacrosse and a
end.
top 10 RPI and just beat the other bubble team, Maryland, twice in a week.
Their last 3 games were as good as they've played all year. Well, another thing I wanted to talk about when we look at this bracket is really to be seated among the top 3 teams makes a big difference.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that there are any walkovers on this schedule, clearly not. But when you get to that 4 seed and you start playing the Patriot champion and the 5 seed playing the Big East champion, it makes a big difference when you get down to some of those lower seeds. A certain benefactor of the seeding process is Penn State and Coach Jeff Tambroni. He's going to join us right now to talk about his team and getting that number 1 seed. And Coach, we think about the last couple of years with your squad, and Paul and I did a game of yours at Ohio State last year, and you played very well. But you've kind of been there and thereabouts. But what was the difference this year getting over the hump and going from a contender really to being the number 1 team in the country going into this tournament?
Yeah, I think our senior leadership and maturity, and I think you have to go through some of those ebbs and flows throughout the course of not just a season, but through the course of a number of seasons. And I thought last year's experience, having to go through some injuries, having some big wins, but some tough losses, really hardened this team through the course of the summer. And they came back really excited this year. It seemed like really a focused group coming in. And I think through every week of not just the season, but in the preseason, these guys have just been really mature and really focused, and it's been a fun team to coach.
Coach, congratulations. That is awesome stuff, getting the 1 seed. I'm going to ask you a really simple question. Why is your offense so legit?
I think they share the ball. I think they're really a selfless group. I honestly don't think anyone really cares about who's getting the credit, and the ball pops from one stick to the next. And I think they play really, really well together. It's a complementary group of lacrosse players, and I think they really work hard at it through the course of the week of practice. Got some elite skill set out there as well, which certainly doesn't hurt. But I think at the end of the day, they really do a great job of just sharing both the credit and the responsibility, and I think it works out that way.
Coach, what's going on with the graduation outfits we see behind you?
These guys missed graduation because of this past weekend's Big Ten Conference tournament, so we figured we were going to honor the 7 seniors that were graduating here this weekend with a little ceremony before tonight's show.
Coach, we talk a lot about tradition. There's a lot of tradition in the Big Ten with teams like Maryland and Hopkins. How does your team view being kind of the new kid on the block and what they need to do to establish tradition there at Penn State?
Yeah, I think that's just kind of been our mantra. We got some great teams, historically rich in tradition in the Big Ten. I think, you look at it from top to bottom, it is a phenomenal conference, one that we're very proud that we're in. There's just not a gimme in any given week, but I think at the other side of it is, we're trying to make a name for ourselves here as a lacrosse program and, talk to our guys a lot about what it takes to get over the hump. And it's not just about winning a regular season game or a regular season championship. These teams that have built their tradition, it's been over long periods of time, decades of time, and it doesn't go away in a day. It certainly didn't come in a day. So, one step at a time kind of a process here. And, we're excited to be in that conversation with those groups right now and just really excited that we had a chance to have some success in the conference this year because it says a lot about this team beating those kinds of historically, successful programs.
Coach, this offseason you completed the renovation of Panzer Stadium, and to be honest with you, when you watch games there, it looks like a rock concert. What can we expect this weekend?
Yeah, I hope it's going to be the same. We've had a great turnout with students, alumni, family, and friends have come back. This is a very loyal tradition, in all sports and within the university itself. And we're very proud to represent Penn State in general. And, over the last probably month with the 3 home games that we had in the Big Ten, it was just a phenomenal environment around it. We're very thankful to Ken Panzer for what he has allowed us to have here. And we're extremely appreciative and grateful for all the fans that have come out and helped us create that kind of environment.
Coach, best of luck on the postseason here. I know you've had a great season so far. You're not even through by a long shot. We look forward to seeing you on Sunday.
Great. Thanks so much.
All right, Coach Tambroni from Penn State, the #1 seed in this tournament. When we come back, it was a great championship week. More coaches, players. We've got the committee chairman coming up next. We'll talk about the reasoning behind where all these 17 teams fit in. Don't go anywhere, folks. A lot of great information. And Ryan Conrad coming up next, too. Don't go anywhere.
At 800 State Farm. And new extra refreshers gum. Give extra, get extra.
Here's your full field and bracket form. Penn State, the top seed, will take on the winner of Marist UMBC out of America East. That game will be played on Wednesday. Penn State will take on the winner on Sunday afternoon. Loyola taking on Syracuse down in Baltimore. Yale and New Haven will play the Big East champ Georgetown. Penn, the Ivy League champ, will take on Army, who probably needed to win the Patriot to get in, and they did that game Saturday at 5 o'clock. Moving on to the lower half of the bracket, Virginia, the ACC champs, will take on Robert Morris. Robert Morris getting in for the 2nd straight year. They'll have to win on the road again. They pushed Maryland last year. That's Saturday night. Towson and Maryland, 2 old rivals in Baltimore, will go at it Sunday at 2:30. Notre Dame and Johns Hopkins. This one's another great first-round matchup. Sunday at 7:30. That's the last game of the weekend on the U. And then Duke and Richmond. It's 5 o'clock on Sunday, also on ESPNU. NCAA Lacrosse Selection Committee Chairman Jack Hayes joins us right now. And Jack, as you and the committee were watching the final couple of games today, putting together this 17-team bracket, what was the biggest challenge you faced?
The biggest challenge is always those last at-large bids and making decisions on the last teams that are in, looking at their seasons in total, comparing their resumes, and ultimately having to pick amongst a group of teams that have had a great year, but we can't take them all.
It appears that Cornell was the first out. They've won 10 games. They beat Towson, who's seeded. They beat Notre Dame, who's seeded. Good RPI, good strength of schedule. Why aren't the Big Red in this tournament?
Cornell had a great year, and again, we looked at the criteria amongst 4 schools there at the end for 3 spots, and in looking at everything from wins in the top 10, wins in the top 20, RPI, strength of schedule. At the end, Cornell was the team amongst those 4 that just did not match up with the other 3. Take nothing away from Cornell; they certainly had a great season.
Jack, High Point had 13 wins this season, 2 of the best wins in all of college lacrosse, you could argue, in the entire field, with a win over #2 Duke and a win over #3 Virginia. When you and the committee sat down, what were the deciding factors in regards to High Point not getting in?
High Point's case was very interesting, as you said, given the wins that they had. We've talked about them over the last couple of weeks with the Regional Advisory Committee, discussing with other coaches about how to balance their wins versus their strength of schedule versus their RPI. And at the end of the day, they did have those great wins. There were other teams in that group ultimately that had those, or that took those last at large bids, that also had quality wins. They just didn't have some of the losses that High Point had, and they had a stronger strength of schedule.
The committee seeds 1 through 8, and then they slot to try to keep bracket integrity looking like a 1 through 16, although it's not an exact 1 through 16. How close, Jack, were you able to come in your eyes to keeping it almost a perfect 1 through 16 bracket?
I thought we were right there. As you said, we seed them 1 to 8, but you go through the exercise of doing the whole bracket, and we were able to do that, and felt strongly about where we were 1 to 8. As we watched those 2 championship games today, essentially the seeding was already done because the Patriot League winner was not going to be seeded in the top 8, and with the Ivy League championship game, both Yale and Penn were going to be seeded, and it was just a case of the winner being the 4 seed and the other team taking the 5th spot.
Jack, it's never an easy task. Lacrosse fans certainly appreciate the work you and your committee put in. Thanks for taking the time to join us tonight.
My pleasure. Nice to visit with you.
Let's talk a little bit about High Point. Southern Conference, 20 RPI. They did get the 2 wins, Paul, that you mentioned, but also losses to St. John's and Jacksonville along the way, and then obviously Richmond in the tournament championship game.
Well, here's the issue. Given the current criteria, a team in a lower conference, a mid-major, let's say, would have to basically go undefeated and lose in the conference final to qualify under the current guidelines, okay? Because High Point in their league plays VMI, Furman, and Mercer. That is a hit on their RPI. Okay. They went out of conference. They scheduled those good games. They won. Unfortunately, they also lost to St. John's, Jacksonville, and then to Richmond. So, but the rich get richer. The big schools are going to benefit because the top 20 schools play top 20 schools, and it's hard for an outsider to crack in, even with 2 great wins like that.
Yeah, it's a bummer for me because I just wish High Point took advantage of the opportunity in front of them and won their conference, because they have a fantastic player in Asher Nolting that I think college lacrosse fans would have loved to have seen in May on a big stage. But make no mistake about it, they didn't take care of the task at hand, and they're home.
Yeah.
And you know who did take care of the task at hand? Penn. Earlier today, we were there in Manhattan. We saw Penn with a phenomenal season that continues with their win in the Ivy League championship. They were able to beat Yale again today. That's 2 times this season already. And it was just a very impressive performance from them coming into this tournament now as the 4 seed.
Yeah. I tell you, I don't. This is one thing I have with the bracket. I don't love the fact that they're slated in this bracket against Yale in the same quarter bracket. 2 teams from the same conference on collision course. That's not right.
If you look at the bracket, and take a 30,000-foot approach, and obviously you're going to have a win over Army and a win in the first round game.
Yeah, Yale-Georgetown.
Against Georgetown for Yale, too, in order for these 2 teams to meet. But, Penn's going to have to beat Yale 3 times, the defending national champs, just to get to championship weekend.
We called that game today, and I think all of us left thinking this could be a Final Four match.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we might see it again, but not necessarily in the Final Four. It might be in the second round. Mike Murphy, Penn's head coach, joins us right now. And, Coach, congratulations on a great run through the Ivy League. You get the championship there. My first question to you is, you start the year 0-3. Now, you're playing 3 great teams at the beginning of the year, but when you're at that point, what's the message to your team, and what's the attitude of your team thinking, okay, the season is not done, we got a lot to play for here, and we can still accomplish our goals?
Yeah, hey, Chris. Our message was pretty simple. We talked about how we'd been playing good lacrosse and had learned how to compete, and the next step was to learn how to win and close those games out. And we talked about that openly, something I've read in the John Wooden book a long time ago, and we just had an open conversation about identifying the moments in games where you need to assert yourself and come out on the winning end. And we competed against those first 3 teams with Maryland, Penn State, and Duke, and then from Villanova on, we've kind of improved on on a number of different things tactically, but mostly we've, I think, learned how to win.
Coach, this is Quinn. Congratulations. We really enjoyed watching your team play this weekend. For folks who have not seen the Quakers in extensive action this season, what would you describe as your team's strength?
Thanks, Quint. Yeah, I mean, I think we're balanced. I think we play with a lot of enthusiasm, and we're balanced. We're good on offense, and we've got a good face-off kid. Our goalie's been playing well, and our defense is stout. So, I think they just understand how we're trying to play and what we're trying to do, and we really have focused on the process of improvement and taking this one day and 1 week at a time.
Coach, it's Paul. Congratulations. Been seeing a lot of you the last few days, and it's been a great pleasure to watch your team play. When I watch Sam Handley, the freshman midfielder, he's different than any other freshman midfielder in the country. You coach him every day. How has he changed your offense?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. He's changed it in a lot of ways, in a lot of subtle ways, and a lot of not so subtle ways. He's a guy, obviously, that can break down a defense. He draws the pole and still can win that matchup fairly regularly. He didn't shoot the ball great today, but he's a very good passer. He's two-handed. He's big and he's pretty athletic. And he's also very humble and selfless. And I think that's part of why he's grown so much over the course of the year, and his teammates have embraced him.
The Black Knights come to Franklin on Saturday, Coach. 5 o'clock on ESPNU. Best of luck in that game. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Okay, Coach Murphy and Penn will take on Army on Saturday in the first round. Let's take a look at the conference breakdown in this tournament. Big Ten, 3, 2 last year. ACC with 4. Some thought maybe if Carolina could make that run, they might be able to get 5 in. You thought maybe 3 in the Ivy. It is Penn and Yale. And the Patriot, because Loyola went down in that tournament, Army had an opportunity, and they took advantage, and they are now in. When we come back, Grant Amen's going to join us. Yeah, Penn State is rolling. The #1 seed in this tournament. We'll chat with him, some other players as well coming up. Penn State fired up about their opportunity ahead of themselves in this tournament.
Go-getters never know bull. DJs put it in, see what it do. You call this the kickback, the relax, the sit back.
I like it short.
You like it short?
Yeah, make it nice and short, but sharp.
Short and sharp.
Yeah.
Fading flat top?
No. Brian Boz look.
You actually look like the Boz a little bit.
I hope not.
Why? He's stuck.
One of my favorite books is The Godfather. You come to me in the day of my daughter's wedding and ask me for a favor type line? Yeah.
You were the best big mountain skier in the country?
Yeah.
At your age?
Yeah.
That's pretty sick, man. That's big time. What would you do if I gave you the same exact haircut you gave your brother? I wasn't telling you.
Dude, I don't think I could show my face around here for a bit.
Did you feel bad doing that to him?
No, dude, I was cracking up.
If this haircut comes out really good, you think you would wear tighter jeans or no?
I can't get in those jeans that you wear, those skinny pants.
Tell everyone why you were nervous about me cutting your hair.
Oh, man. So he's naming off all these people, and, all these are these Caucasian people. I didn't know what to think, so I'm like, all right, my hair's a little bit different.
Can you spend just a couple minutes in the mirror in the morning? You're going to be the only Notre Dame lacrosse player ever going to film a gel.
I can't believe I allowed you to do this.
You're legitimately nervous.
I'm like,
where do you see it?
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
That's not as bad as I thought.
Not as bad.
Oh, yeah, Clark. Oh, looks good.
Skinny jeans next?
No, thanks. I'll pass.
The fact that we have a best of relaxing with Peacock means that somewhere out there's a worst of relaxing with Peacock. Maybe on the other end of the desk. Q Biscuit just got his hair done. Right?
This
Didn't
is
you ask
like
for that?
3 hours old.
That's
yeah.
fresh cut.
that.
I like it. It looks
a lot
good.
safer than driving from New York City behind Clark today.
At the end of the Ivy tournament. But we're here, selection special here for the lacrosse tournament. We saw the 17 bracket at the top of the show. We've shown it to you here a couple of times. When you look at a big picture, I mean, what really jumps out at you in terms of first-round matchups that you're really looking to see?
Well, a game like Towson, Maryland, in the area, it was a local rivalry for so many decades. Towson was always kind of in the shadow of the University of Maryland. And so now this game is an opportunity for both schools. Maryland comes in off a loss back-to-back to Johns Hopkins. Their defense has not been playing well. I love Jared Bernhardt, Bubba Fairman. This is a team that can score when they possess the ball. And obviously their heritage, their lineage under John Tillman has been championship weekend or bust for the most part.
Yeah.
So this is a team that's now been given a chance. I know they were holding their breath over the last 48 hours in terms of being in the tournament. They're in. That's a reset button. It's a clean slate. And, no one wants to mess with Maryland in May.
Clark, we talked about it earlier in the show, too. Syracuse, they're used to playing in the Carrier Dome in this first round. They're going to go on the road now to Baltimore to take on Loyola.
If you rewind just a few weeks ago, I think people thought Syracuse was a team that was emerging as one of the hottest teams in the country. And they're controlling that playing game in the ACC against North Carolina, and they blow a lead with 4 minutes left in that game. It was a disaster. They were winning 10-7. But when this team's at their best, they have a lot of different pieces. They're a hard team to scout because there's not one guy who really goes to the cage all the time and asserts himself. You have guys like Brendan Curry. Stephen Rafis behind the cage has emerged. Bradley Voigt inside is a big-time presence. This is a really hard matchup, I think, for a Loyola defense that at times has struggled with great movement and off-ball play.
Yeah, and athletic midfielders. Loyola's defense has been reliant on their goalie, Jake Stover, making more than 15 stops a game. Face-offs will be critical here because I think both offenses have a subtle advantage. Pat Spencer, the Nick Mellon matchup looms one to watch. And this game's going to be juiced. It's going to be jacked. Ridley is a terrific home court advantage for the Greyhounds.
Yeah, and Nick Mellon, the shutdown defender for Syracuse, no one's gotten the best of him one-on-one. And Spencer is the best player in college lacrosse. So
there's a size differential there that'll be really interesting to watch.
There is, but Mellon is really strong. Low center of gravity, incredible feet, and he can play that leverage game. He will ride you on the opponent's hips without losing his feet.
Yeah, well, that'll be interesting. And I like Peter Dirth on the Syracuse defense. I think he's one of the most underrated shorties in the country.
If Syracuse can survive, or if Pat Spencer can survive in terms of Loyola, they may be facing a potential matchup with Penn State. If Penn State can win their first round matchup against the winner of Marist and UMBC, when you talk about Penn State, so much fun to watch. They've had close games, they've had blowouts, and certainly their game against Johns Hopkins to win the Big Ten tournament was a classic. And one of the protagonists in that game was Grant Amen. He joins us right now, live from Happy Valley. And Grant, I got to tell you, when we were coming back from break, we saw the best of Peacock in relaxing, cutting hair. I understand you're going to allow him to cut your hair. You're sitting in the barbershop on Wednesday.
Yeah, that's. I'm excited for it this week. We'll see what he can do.
Well, you've been fun to watch this year, and I'm sure you've. Tell me how much fun it is to play in this offense now that you're healthy this year, healthier certainly than you were all last year as a team, and you're really starting to click in terms of now having some years under your belt playing with your teammates.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been an incredibly fun year playing with those guys, watching some of the younger guys grow up as the year went on, and we're a pretty fast-moving group, and we have a lot of fun playing together, like sharing the ball, and I think that was shown last night, and luckily we were able to come out on top.
Grant, this is Quinn. Congratulations on your the year you're having, put up the giant numbers and the team success. I see from the outside a team that's taken steps this year, whether it's been handling the #1 ranking to winning your league tournament. What is the next step, and how are you guys keeping everything in the proper balance and perspective?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us is just continuing to have a growth mindset throughout whatever we do. I don't think we've necessarily played our best lacrosse yet. We have yet to play a complete game quite yet. So, hopefully we can just get back to work tomorrow and prepare for our next opponent, whoever that may be, but mainly just focusing on ourselves first and cleaning up what we did wrong on Saturday and just trying to get better every day and just continuing that process, hopefully through championship weekend.
Grant, it's Paul. Congratulations on the #1 seed. I mean, the numbers are eye-popping. Your ability to dissect defenses with your passing, it's insane. But one other attribute that you have that I think separates you from the rest is your change of direction. When a young kid is watching you play, what is critical in regards to you getting that type of separation on your defender?
Yeah, I mean, just first, you always have to have your head up, and having great stick protection is the first key in any successful dodge. But playing to your defenseman's strengths and their weaknesses. I've been lucky this year to play against some great defensemen who have challenged me and made me better. So you got to study who you're playing against first to figure that out. But at the end of the day, you have the ball in your stick. So just going at it with just some great confidence and understanding that you may not win every matchup, but if you just keep pushing the ball, eventually you go in the back of the net.
Grant, your teammates have been very poised behind you during this interview. I got to give them a tip of the cap. There's no malfeasance or anything behind you. So they respect you, respecting the upperclassmen. That's good to see. Paul, any advice as you get ready to put him in the barber chair?
No, man, look at the guy. He's a stud. He looks like he could be a GQ model, man.
I don't think he needs a haircut. That's the whole point. I'm worried about you changing it up. Maybe you're just fine.
I promise.
In Happy Valley the way you are. All right, Grant, we'll see you on Wednesday in the barber chair. Thanks for joining us, my man.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, Grant Amon, Penn State, getting set to enter this tournament as the #1 seed. When we come back, we're going to head down to Charlottesville. Ryan Conrad getting the Cavs into this tournament as the #3 seed, taking on Romo to start. There's Towson, fired up about their opportunity. 6th seed, winners of the Colonial. They'll take on Maryland in a game with all kinds of intrigue in the orange. Paul, you're familiar with that room right there, the Syracuse Orange celebrating. They may have been sweating it out a little bit. Probably thought they were in pretty good shape, but now they got to go on the road to take on Loyola.
Welcome back to the NCAA Men's Lacrosse Championship Selection Special.
The Cavs are back. They win the ACC tournament. Coach Lars Tiffany got him into the NCAAs last year, but this year they took that one step further. Great regular season. They were able to dispatch of Notre Dame to win the title, and now they are the #3 seed in this tournament, taking on Robert Morris Saturday at 7:30 at night. And Robert, we're joined right now by Ryan Conrad, midfielder on this team. And Ryan, you come back from the injury last year. Tell me how difficult that was as this Virginia team and your teammates start to put things together and become a force again in the ACC. You having to watch from the sideline, but preparing to come in and help out again this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it was definitely tough at first, but just having the amazing support through my team and through my medical staff and through everyone that helped me throughout the process, it was pretty seamless, and I was just so happy to be a part of it, and just being on the sideline and being able to experience that with the guys was amazing.
Ryan, congratulations on the year and your individual success. What has been most responsible for the team's resurgence nationally? Virginia, a program that's won a handful of national titles. You guys are back in the top 5 where you've always thought you should be. What's most responsible?
It comes down to the trust that we have in each other, honestly, and just the confidence that we have that everyone's going to make the plays and in the coaching staff and just everything that we're doing. And I think it really shows just how much fun and how much trust we have on the field. And it's just an amazing experience being a part of a place like this and a part of a team that loves each other so much.
Ryan, a lot of people, including me, think you're the most versatile midfielder in college lacrosse. You wear so many hats. What is your favorite aspect of the midfield position?
I mean, I think the fact that there is so many things you can do with the midfield position is my favorite part. I think just being able to get ground balls, face-off wings, being a face-off man is technically a midfielder. Offense, defense, there's so many things you can do with that position, and that's something I've tried to just kind of focus on throughout my entire life, and playing multiple sports has just kind of helped me do that. But I think just the fact that you can basically do whatever you want as a midfielder and help out your team as much as possible is what drew me to it.
Ryan, NCAA tournament, and when you describe it to a younger guy on your team as a leader of your group, what do you emphasize? What's changed, or what's different, or what's the same about an NCAA tournament game?
I think what we're trying to focus on is that there is no difference in terms of like a no big games mentality. Basically, we just want to come into a game thinking it's one more, and as long as we focus on the things that we've been doing all season, and just focusing on trusting the process and trusting our coaches and our teammates, we're gonna come out on top and just try and not focus on it being any bigger than any other game.
Thank you, Ryan. We appreciate the time. Best of luck against Robert Morris this weekend.
Thank you.
All right, Ryan Conrad. And when you think about this Virginia team, one loss going back to that High Point loss all the way back on February 18th, just won that loss against Duke.
Early on in the year, they were the comeback kids, and they pulled off some miraculous finishes. Middle of the year, they started to score goals, and it's really, really strong unit. Doc Sakin, Matt Moore, a healthy Michael Krause. Late in the year now, all of a sudden, Clark, defense. The other day, they shut out Notre Dame for 47 minutes.
Yeah, give Kip Turner, their defensive coordinator, a lot of credit, because there were some serious holes in that defense, and they cleaned things up. But on the other end, Matt Moore, to me, he's their leading point scorer. He's been fantastic in regards to distributing the rock and finding seams in a defense. And this is a kid who played midfield his whole life. So kudos to him for being a versatile player, a lot like Conrad.
More Conrad players to watch for Virginia. Q, as you're watching this tournament unfold, give me a player that maybe isn't top of mind in terms of that you want to see. Paul, I'll start with you, actually. Give me a guy that you want to see that maybe not everyone's talking about, but you think maybe they will by the end of this tournament.
Well, I think lacrosse fans know who Joey Epstein is, but he's only a freshman, and I want to see him on the big